Hello and welcome back to the Three-Handed Bandits channel, live and in stereo for the first time. And I'm here with the sluttiest co-host on all of the YouTube platform, Aiden. The NFL season is finally underway. Game 1 kicks off tonight. How are we feeling?
I am feeling fan-fucking-tastic. This date has been circled in my calendar for too long for the start of this season. I can't wait.
I know I'm super excited. So not only do we get to see the Detroit Lions, who I think is everybody's second favorite team in the entire league, but we also get to see the reigning Super Bowl champs and the best player in the league, Patrick Mahomes, on Thursday Night Football. What else could you be excited for? What else could you ask for? But before we get into kind of a quick little breakdown of the game and kind of some picks and some betting lines, please go ahead and like and subscribe and share this video with somebody you care about. So before we kind of get into our picks, I do think there is some important news that we need to talk about revolving Travis Kelce and Chris Jones. So Travis Kelce obviously hyperextended his knee yesterday in practice or 2 days ago in practice, and Chris Jones is holding out for a big contract and a big payday. So how do you think that not having those two players is going to affect this Chiefs team?
Not having Chris Jones is going to be in my opinion, very, very big. He's such a defensive prowess on that defensive line. So not having him in there will kind of hinder them to pressure Jared Goff more than the other guys will. I think he's the guy that they're circling. Like, this guy will get to the quarterback, and not having him, it's almost a weight off their shoulders. Not saying they don't have to worry about the rest of the line. It's just they are able to extend plays way longer than they would be if Jones was on that defensive line. And with Travis Kelce, everyone knows about him. Man, he is fantastic. Number one tight end. He makes the plays. He's too great. And it's really going to hurt the offense. I mean, I'm not saying that Pat Mahomes can't make magic happen, because he can, because Travis Kelce is his number one guy. I was having a little difficulties, but Travis Kelce, him being the number one guy, it's hard to take away, spread around those targets again. Like, he's taken up something like, it was like, I think 75% or 60% of all offensive plays from Pat, and that's a lot of percentage being thrown to these other guys like Kadarius Toney, MBS. It's like these guys that can do it, it's just whether or not will. I mean, those guys I'm not as confident as with Travis Kelce's in that lineup.
Yeah, so I definitely agree on the Chris Jones front. So not only do they not have Chris Jones, Charles Omenihu, who is a edge rushing signing for this team, is suspended for the first 6 games of the season. And so it's going to be on Steve Spagnuolo to really get creative with blitzes and stunts to really get after the quarterback. Because right now, I think their best edge rusher is year 2 George Karlaftis. So you need a big George Karlaftis game if you want to get after Jared Goff. And then for Travis Kelce, while he is such a great playmaker and so dynamic with, Patrick Mahomes, and not only their chemistry together, to find soft spots in zones, and as they're both, extending plays to link up and know what each other's going to do, I think that is going to hurt. But when you have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, you're never going to have a bad offense. I still think they're going to be able to move the ball, especially as this Lions defense was not great last year. And I don't think they did enough with the draft capital they have to truly improve this unit. And so I do imagine that they're still going to be able to run the ball very effectively with Pacheco or Edwards-Helaire or McKinnon. But also I do think they're still going to be able to move the ball throughout the air more. So right now, they don't have a true number one wide receiver. They have a kind of just a random mix of guys. But someone that I think might end up being the most productive wide receiver for the Chiefs this game is actually Richie James, who is currently listed as their backup slot. I think last year for the Giants, he was actually a pretty productive player, had a good year, and I just don't really believe in Sky Moore. And so I think Richie James could be like a low-key underrated guy who's really going to have a big game for this Chiefs team tonight. But as I said, I still think the Lions defense isn't great. And, even without Kelce, I do imagine that the Chiefs will be able to move the ball at a pretty efficient level. Let's go ahead and talk about, the Vegas line. So currently the Vegas line is about Chiefs -5. It opened at 6.5, but obviously Travis Kelsey, everybody, started slamming the other side. So that line shifted drastically. But for me, I still think the Chiefs are going to win this game and cover the -5, even without Travis Kelsey and Chris Jones.
The covering is the one that I'm like is a big question mark to me. I agree with the Chiefs winning. It's like I think starting line for anything -200 for Patrick Mahomes. He's like 18-2. It's like some absurd number that he is just so proficient in beating teams like that. But with covering, I mean, I just don't know. I think the Lions' offense is good enough to squeak a cover. It's like a backdoor cover or something like that. Them like final drive down the field, they have to make these points. I think they can cover that. It says on my thing, it says -4.5, 5. I think they can cover, but with the Chiefs still winning.
Okay, and so for me, as we get into a quick little score prediction, so I have the Chiefs winning 27-20. I do think it's going to be. I think a lot of people are expecting, a big high scoring game. I do think it's going to be a little bit less scoring than people do think. But I do think that the Chiefs are going to score a touchdown late, probably, and they're going to have the lead and be able to make a stop, even despite no Chris Jones and Travis Kelsey.
I was kind of on that route, but mine was the Lions make a credible, like almost upset, but then the Chiefs go down the field and win it. And I had 28-27, again, with it being on the higher side of scoring, but not in the 30s or something so high. I had the Chiefs winning off that final drive with Pat Mahomes.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that happening. But as I said, I was so upset with how the Lions targeted the draft. They spent 2 first-round picks on a running back and linebacker, which is 2 of the least valuable positions in the entire NFL landscape.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, I wish they had done a little bit more. While I do think Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell are going to be good players, Jahmyr Gibbs isn't a 3-down running back, and as of right now, Jack Campbell isn't even listed as the starter. And so I think just value-wise, they could have targeted the draft a lot better. Also, somebody that's not being talked about, Emmanuel Mosley, the cornerback for the Lions that they brought in from the 49ers, is going to be out, still recovering from his ACL injury.
Mm-hmm.
And, the Lions don't have any great corners. They brought in Cam Sutton from Pittsburgh, who's a good corner. He's a really good player. But outside of that, they don't have any really good, talented corners. And so I think, if the Lions had better done the draft, I still think they could have got Jahmyr Gibbs and even probably Jack Campbell. But I think we'd be looking about this defense and team a lot higher. Imagine this team got Christian Gonzalez or a Joey Porter for a team that's going to run some man coverage, or like another defensive lineman. Imagine if this team got like Jalen Carter and Christian Gonzalez or Joey Porter and then still got Jahmyr Gibbs. They could have had such an amazing all-time draft. And I really think they shit the bed and bought into their own hype and drank their own Kool-Aid just a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so I think that secondary is not going to be quite as good as some people think it might be. And it's going to really let the Chiefs kind of move the ball at will.
I still think it'll be better than last year for sure. They gave up, I think it was like the 30th or 32nd most yards to passing. It's pretty rough. I mean, yes, they got a little bit better, but you were right. The Cam Sutton is a solid, but I don't think if put on other teams, he would be their number one like he is on this team.
Yeah, I definitely don't think you want Cam Sutton as your number one corner. Mm-hmm. But as your number 2, I think he's, a really solid corner. And so what I think is going to happen is that the Chiefs are really going to be able to move the ball at will. I just think that where we're going to see the Chiefs struggled is not first and second down. It's going to be on the third downs, what's going to happen then. Because that's what has really helped the Chiefs out is, 3rd and 8, Travis Kelsey, we can say, hey, go run whatever route you want, and Mahomes will figure out where you're going to be and throw you the ball. And so I think if they're playing within the structure and able to move the ball well on first and second downs, I do imagine that the Chiefs are really going to move the ball at will. It's just when they get to the 3rd and long situations is where I think the Chiefs are going to struggle.
Oh, yeah, for sure. If the Lions can hold them to, the 3rd downs, I would say anything above maybe 10 yards, 3rd downs, it would show a good weakness in the Chiefs' offense. I mean, I think they could convert a couple of them, but yeah, that connection to Pat Mahomes and Kelsey is just too dynamic, especially in third downs.
Yeah, but so and that's what I'm saying. Without Emmanuel Mosley,
Mhm.
uh, I think this defense is not only hurt in that aspect, but as I said, they didn't do enough to add players to this defense that, as we said, was one of the worst defenses in the league last year. And so when the Chiefs are playing in structure, which they're usually really good at, and everything's moving as it should be, I do think that the Lions are really going to stop them. So that's part of the reason why I do think that the Chiefs are going to win this game and cover the spread. It's also part of the reason I think the Lions are going to not cover the spread is because Steve Spagnuolo is actually a really good defensive coordinator, and that defense always finds a way to step up and make the big play when they need to. And so, because of that, I do imagine that the Chiefs are not only going to win the game, they're going to cover, and they're really going to move the ball mostly at will, I imagine. It's kind of how I see things going. But
I don't disagree. I could see it happening.
Yeah. But before we go ahead and get out of here, let's go ahead and talk about some of our favorite betting lines, um, like player prop lines. I'll start off. What's a line that you like?
My number one line that I like that I cannot look away from is on the prize picks. Pat Mahomes over 17 and a half rushing yards. I do think that he's a proficient runner when he's getting out of the pocket. He can scramble for 5-10 yards, no problem, if no one's going to cover him. And I do think that not having Travis Kelsey, it will like not hinder him so much. But like if he's looking at his number one, number two guys, and he doesn't see anything, he's gonna use his feet. And the Lions were like again one of the worst three defenses against the quarterback run last year. At like I think it was like 30 to 40 yards a game for rushing yards for a QB as an average. That's too good to look over with such a low line of Pat Mahomes.
Okay, yeah, I definitely think that's a true possibility of that happening. My favorite player prop line is actually on the Underdog Fantasy app. It's going to be Patrick Mahomes over 0.5 passing yards.
Man, that one's close.
That's
Like,
taken.
wow, whoa. I'm not gonna lie to you. I wouldn't make that bet. That's just too good to be true.
Sometimes you
First
gotta be a little
pass,
bit risky.
he gets hurt, doesn't come back in the game. I will laugh my butt off at that bet that you make.
That would be really upsetting. But no, so my actual favorite line, as I said, as I hinted earlier with Ricky James, is going to be the Sky Moore under receiving yards. I just don't think Sky Moore is really that good of a player. And he's getting a lot of hype. I don't really think he's that good of a player. And Richie James, I think, is an underrated, really solid veteran piece. And so I imagine that Ricky James is actually going to come on the field and produce a pretty good amount from the slot. I don't really think that, Sky Moore is going to do a whole lot because the Lions have CG or Gardner Johnson and Brian Branch, who are both going to be really excellent from, the nickel spot. And so I really don't think Sky Moore is going to do anything. I feel really confident about the under. That is my number one line that I would bet on. What's your next line?
My next line, since it's such a, in my opinion, that 28-27 score, that offense is going to feed through Among Us St. Brown. And whether or not Jared Goff can get to him, I like the over in 74 and a half yards, again, on prize picks.
Yeah, that's a line that I think is a pretty solid one. When Amon-Ra St. Brown has been out there the last couple of years, he's just produced. And he's, outside of Cooper Kupp, the best true slot receiver in the league. And so my next favorite line, I only have two lines that I really, really love, is David Montgomery over on rushing yards. I know a lot of people, especially in the fantasy landscape, are hyping up Jahmyr Gibbs and really telling you to go after him. But I do think that this running back room is going to be much more of a committee than people are really giving it credit for. And so I do imagine that we're going to see a lot of David Montgomery rushing the ball. While I do think Jahmyr Gibbs will get out there and probably produce pretty well as a receiving back, I think David Montgomery is an underrated running back. And, Jamal Williams had 17 rushing touchdowns last year, a really productive year. David Montgomery is a better player than Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams had a much better situation because DeAndre Swift got hurt and was really a solo backfield. But I do imagine that David Montgomery is going to get a good amount of carries, going to be pretty productive, especially against this weaker Chiefs front that is without Chris Jones, as we said. I think the line, I didn't write it down, is around like 52.5. I can definitely see
I
him
think
getting around
it's on his picture, it was
50
54 and a
carries,
half.
54.5. Okay, so I think he's
Mhm.
definitely going to get around 15 carries and probably be around 60-ish yards, 67-ish yards. So I don't think he's going to get like 150 rushing yards and completely blow the line out of the water. But I do think that he's going to have a lot of touches and is going to be fairly productive with those limited touches as a running
Mhm.
back.
It just takes
But is
one
there any
long
other
rush to
lines?
really get you over. I like that line.
Yeah, or I think it could be one big rush, or I think it could be, as I said, 15 like 5 yard runs.
Mhm.
But I do think this, Lions offensive line is really good against a weaker Chiefs front. It's going to be, I think, pretty productive for David Montgomery. But what is your last line?
My last line's actually building off of yours. I love the Lions offensive line so much. I do think that the Chiefs will put pressure against Jared Goff, but I don't think they'll get sacks off him. I have less than 2 sacks to the Chiefs defensive front. I do think they can get pressure onto him, but Jared Goff is a smart quarterback. I think he can get those quick throws off if he needs to be, especially with Jameer Gibbs or someone that can dump off real quick, or he can throw it away. I don't see many, if any, sacks. That's my hot take. I don't see any sacks at all. And it being 2 is kind of heavy.
Yeah, I do think that the Lions offense with Ben Johnson, who I think was the best piece of their offseason, was keeping Ben Johnson. I do think that the designed offense is going to be really, really efficient and moving at a pretty good level. And as you said, I do agree they do have one of the best offensive lines in the league. And when you have someone like Jameer Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown, you're really able to get the ball out quickly and efficiently. And I do think they're going to run the ball very well with David Montgomery, as I said. And with George Karlaftis as their best edge rusher tonight for the Chiefs, I think under 2 sacks is pretty reasonable line and something that I agree would be something I would feel comfortable betting on. Yeah, is there any other thing you want to say before we go and get out of here?
No, that's about it. I can't wait to behold my money after this game.
I agree. So just to recap everything, we both have the Chiefs winning. I have them covering. Aiden has them. I have them not covering.
You
No, I
have
have
the
the Chiefs
Chiefs
covering.
covering. I have the Lions covering.
That's what I meant to say. There we
Yeah.
go. Sky Moore under, David Montgomery over. No sacks for the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes over on some rushing yards. Just some lines and for stuff for you to focus on. But overall, if you stuck around for this entire video, please like and subscribe and let us know where we're wrong. And we'll be back very, very soon with our full week 1 picks. Thank y'all for watching, guys.